This weekend, Battle of BC6 will be going down in Canada, and it will be the major happening this weekend. Although, technically, it was going to be the super major, but, well, I guess we'll get to it in due time. Since Battle of BC6 is going down this weekend, that means today is our last chance to take a look at the projected bracket, and make some predictions on who's going far and who has the chance to underperform. The format for today will look something like this. First, we'll go over each of the top 8 seeds. Then we'll be taking a look at some players who are not top 8 seeds that I think have the potential to perform really well. And lastly, we'll take a look at all three of the pre-locals that have taken place over this past week. By the way, the seeding graphic I'm using in this video is courtesy of DarkNutStat. Link to it is in the description. With that established, let's just get right into our top 8 seeds. The first seed of Battle of BC6 is Sonics, who is not gonna be there. Okay, so we're really just gonna jump into it, huh? Sonics is unfortunately DQing from this tournament because of a cancelled flight. But Sonics is not the only one. 3 of the original top 10 seeds, Sonics, Light, and Onin, have all had issues with their trips. And while Onin might still make it in time at the time I'm writing the script, the pattern of having to cancel due to travel complications has plagued this tournament. Take Alendis, for example, the Mexican Snake player that was supposed to also be here. Alendis had to DQ because the Canadian government tightened their restrictions on Mexican travelers entering Canada right before this tournament, which was just really bad timing. All of these DQs made Battle of BC6 drop down in the tiers, from S+ tier, aka a super major, all the way down to A+ tier, aka just a major. Interestingly enough, the only country that seemed to pull through alright when it came to making it to the tournament was Japan, who arguably had the hardest journey except for maybe France. And even though Light was able to be taken out of the bracket in time, Sonics wasn't, and is still the first seed on StartGG. This leaves the door open for other competitors to slink into the spot that Sonics left open. Well, funnily enough, Sonics and Onin are supposed to fight for top 8, but both of them might not be there. In that scenario, Doramigi and Ryuo would be seeded to fight in winners' quarters. And given the recent set count between the two, I think Doramigi would probably win there. This means that, despite not being a top 8 seed, Doramigi could feasibly make top 8 through winners, thanks to these DQs. And even if Onin shows up, Minmin is supposed to be in contention for Steve's worst matchup. So there's a big chance that Doramigi just plain wins here anyways. It's also worth noting that Light is listed as the 3rd seed on the graphic that I'm using, but was able to be taken out of the bracket itself, so that's not accurate anymore. Everyone below Light basically just got moved up by 1 seed. But with Sonics DQing, that more so leaves the door open for our 2nd seed, Spargo. Spargo is the returning champion from Battle of BC5, but he could run into some problems. First off, Spargo has to fight Riddles for top 8, and Riddles did defeat Spargo at Port Priority 8. Contributing to this is the Battle of BC rule set, which, just take a look at it. I personally have no stake in rule sets, but the general reaction to this by Twitter hasn't really been that positive. At best, people have called it volatile or controversial. At worst, people have called it repugnant or disgusting. And some people have even called it congratulations to Riddles for winning Battle of BC6. This is mostly because both Town and FD are legal with only 1 ban and full DSR, which, if you didn't know, means that you can't go back to a stage that you've previously won on during the set. Also, this rule set runs stage first, not character first, which means that an Akola versus Myron situation is very likely to happen throughout many sets. So yeah, there's a good chance that Riddles could beat Spargo. However, I think that in all likelihood, Spargo is probably going to go on a pretty dominant run at this tournament, since neither of the other horsemen are in attendance. The 3rd seed is Gluttony, who was the 4th seed but got moved up because Light DQ'd, yada yada. This run actually poses some problems for Gluttony though, as Gluto has to fight Yoshidora to make top 8 through winners. And Yoshidora just beat Gluttony at one of the pre-locals that we're covering later in a dominant 3-0. This matchup is considered to be pretty good for Yoshi. It's just that Gluttony has kind of better playered every Yoshi he's ever fought, but that is going to be significantly harder against Yoshidora. Gluttony is seeded to lose to Spargo in semis before defeating both MKLeo and Hurt in losers. And while I can see Gluttony defeating Leo, Hurt is probably the biggest wildcard in this entire top 8 seeding. Speaking of which, the 4th seed of Battle of BC6 is Hurt. So, like I just said, Hurt is the biggest unknown of anyone in this top 8. Some people are even calling him overseeded. But here's the thing, I think Hurt has a good chance to actually outperform this seed. Hurt's biggest challenge is going to be Syrup, who he has to fight to make top 32. I'm assuming that Syrup will probably go Ness here, which can be an annoying matchup for Snake. Win though, and Hurt fights MKLeo for top 8. And while Joker is not the best for Snake, it's certainly not terrible. And if Apollo Kage can beat Leo, so can Hurt. From there, Hurt is seeded to lose to Sonics, but aha, Sonics isn't going. Which means that Hurt likely fights either Onin, Dormigi, or Ryuo. And guess what? I think Hurt beats all 3 of them. Sure, Min is a bad matchup for Snake, but Hurt's recent set count against Dormigi is actually really good, with Hurt winning their last set in a close game 5. If Hurt does win, we're gonna see the Japanese Snake in winners finals, likely against Spargo. And Hurt has taken sets off of other horsemen like both Akola and Mia at the same event. So while it would be improbable, it's not impossible for Hurt to defeat Spargo. If you're looking for a dark horse candidate to bet on for Battle of BC6, Hurt might be your go-to player this weekend. So seeding past this point was kind of jumbled a little bit, and the graphic I'm using doesn't really match up with the actual seeding. So I'm just going to reveal this all in one go. The last 4 top 8 seeds are MKLeo, Riddles, Yoshidora, and Onin. And their precise seeding is MKLeo as the 5th seed, Yoshidora as the number 6 seed, Riddles as the 7th seed, and lastly Onin as the 8th. Let's go from the top down. MKLeo is also a bit of a wild card coming into this tournament. There are really solid placements, like winning King Khan as the most prominent example, as well as good runs at both Collision to 7th place and Bonito Harbor to 2nd. The big question is if MKLeo can remain consistent. Like I mentioned earlier, MKLeo is seeded to lose to Hurt before top 8, which I actually do think will happen, but I would love to be proven wrong. It's just that MKLeo doesn't have the best record against Apollo Kage, who is seen as the 2nd best Snake behind Hurt. But that was Slump Leo, and this might be Peak Leo. Again, we'll have to see. MKLeo is seeded to beat Rawflo in order to make top 8 through losers, which is actually really scary given how close their sets have been recently. It would actually be really easy to see MKLeo place 9th at this tournament. In top 8, Leo is seeded to beat Onin, and we'll probably see the Rob come out if this set ends up happening, before losing to Gluto, which could easily go the other way if Leo is playing good this weekend. Yoshidora, once again, is a bit of a wild card. We haven't really seen Yoshidora at a tournament of this size in a hot minute. Given good pre-local performances that we'll be going over later, it doesn't seem as though Yoshidora has lost his edge, but I could be proven wrong. We've already mentioned how Yoshidora is seeded to fight Gluto for top 8. I actually think Yoshidora will win this set, where he probably then loses to Spargo. But let's assume that Gluto clutches this set. In losers, Yoshidora has to beat Toriguri in order to make top 8. But if you don't remember, Toriguri has actually beaten Yoshidora before. That's right, dear viewers, in a timeline not so far from what's predicted to happen, Banjo makes top 8 at Battle of BC6. We'll be talking about Toriguri more later on. I mean, he is in the thumbnail after all. In top 8, Yoshidora is seeded to beat Riddles before losing to Hurt for 5th. So if you're familiar with the pre-local for this tournament, you're probably laughing to yourself right now. We'll go over it more in depth when we cover Riddles, which is right now actually. So I think Riddles is probably going to go on a big run at Battle of BC6. Not only is it his home country, which always gives players a big power up, but Riddles has a really good bracket. Like we talked about before, Riddles has to fight Spargo for top 8, which he could actually win, but let's assume he doesn't. Riddles has to fight Dormigi for top 8 in loser's side, which is actually going to be really hard, given Min's decent matchups into both Kazuya and Terry. This set will probably be the hardest part of Riddles' entire bracket run, and if I were him, I'd be practicing the Min matchup before headed into the tournament this weekend. Let's assume for a moment that Riddles does win this set. Riddles then has to fight Yoshidora into Hurt, like we just mentioned. Well, guess what? We'll cover this more in depth later, but Riddles defeated both of these players already at the pre-local. Of course, pre-locals and majors never really translate 1-to-1, and these sets were close. But Riddles has now proven capable of beating both of these players, and with the hometown power-up and a stage list very beneficial to Kazuya, Riddles could easily make losers semis, where he'd have to fight Gluttony, another really good matchup. So yeah, don't be shocked if we see Riddles making top 3 at least in this tournament. He's got an insanely good bracket as long as he gets past Dormigi. But I did just get done saying that Dormigi could make top 8 through winners. So heck, Riddles might not even have that roadblock in his way. And lastly, we have Onin. Like I said earlier, Onin might not even be there, but let's assume that they will be there for the sake of the video. Onin is seeded to fight Sonics for top 8, but since Sonics won't be there, it'll either be Ryuo or Doramigi. And this is simple. If it's Ryuo, I think Onin wins. But if it's Doramigi, I think Onin loses. Since I think Doramigi will beat Ryuo, let's assume Onin drops into losers here as seeded. Onin has to defeat Ron to make top 8 through losers. And if you thought any of the players we've covered so far were wildcards, did you know that Ron is gonna be there? Ron could make top 4 and I wouldn't bat an eye. Anyways, if Onin defeats Ron, they're seeded to lose to MK Leo. And if Leo goes Rob, I think that's pretty likely. Now that we've gone over our top 8 seeds, it's time for us to delve just a little bit deeper and go over some of the non-top 8 seeds that I think will make a massive run here at Battle of BC6. First things first, Doramigi will 100% outplace his seed, and honestly, so could Ron. I've already gone over Doramigi and how I think he'll make top 8 through winners. All that Ron would need to do is get an upset over Riddles in winner's side or Onin in loser's side, both of which are pretty possible, although Riddles did beat Yoshidora at the pre-local last night, so Ron's best chance is probably through losers, especially if Onin ends up DQing. I've already mentioned how Raflo has to fight MK Leo for 9th in loser's bracket, a set that could easily go in Raflo's favor given the fact that Raflo defeated Leo at UFA and their set at King Khan went to a game 5. And get this, Raflo's qualifier match for top 24 is against Yoshidora, and if you don't remember, Raflo beat Yoshidora at Terra, one of the largest upsets of that tournament. While that set was on Raflo's home turf, this time it'll be on neutral grounds, so we'll have to see if Raflo can repeat that upset without the home field advantage. The chances of Toriguri not making an insane upset are actually really low. We live in a timeline where Banjo and Kazooie could easily make top 8 at a major, which is just insane to think about. All Toriguri would need to do is upset MK Leo in winners, which is possible but would be heartbreaking, or Yoshidora in losers, something that could definitely happen. The American duo of Syrup and WebJP deserves some recognition, as Syrup could definitely make an upset win over Hurt given the nature of Snake vs the PK Kids, and WebJP going on an insane run would be super hype. Web is seeded to lose to Spargo, which fair enough, yeah, as well as Raflo. But given how Raflo lost to Kameme Sheik at a Japanese major just a few weeks ago, I think Web could actually win this set. And lastly, while I have a lot less to say about these last few players, I just want to give a handful of other shoutouts. Keep an eye on both Base Mage and Tadakotori for an amazing pre-local performance we'll go over later. Goryoka has the potential to make some big upsets after 2 good placements at 2 different pre-locals. Keep an eye on Armadillo, who got a big upset over Shuton at last year's Battle of BC, as well as the Schmix tape, as this is a rare occurrence of seeing a Swedish competitor in the States for Ultimate. Danny has been picking up win after win after win at Midwest Regionals, so watch out for Danny to make a big upset or two. We're seeing a rare out-of-country performance from Bernie, the Mexican Link. And Black Twins 13 has the potential to do really good, given their home country advantage, and the fact that Black Twins defeated Riddles just a week ago at Gourmet Bash 3. And lastly, keep an eye on Major, because that's Ganondorf, and Ganondorf is cool. And that wraps up for the seeding of Battle of BC6. Now let's go over the 3 pre-locals for this major. Coincidentally, there was one on Tuesday, one on Wednesday, and one on Thursday, and as they went on, they got larger and more stacked. So going chronologically is actually the most convenient method. We'll be covering the top 2 of each of these pre-locals and seeing who they defeated on the way. The first pre-local was SFU Smash, Battle of BC6 pre-local, which drew in 58 entrants. Grand Finals saw Base Mage go up against Tadakotori, and if you're a fan of Hungrybox, you've likely already seen this Grand set, since he made a video about it. Base Mage made Grands through winners by defeating Lemon 2-1, Goryoka in a Game 5 set, and Lancelot 3-0. Tadakotori actually got the exact same wins, since after losing to Lancelot in winners semis, tore through the losers bracket, defeating Lemon 3-0, Goryoka 3-1, and lastly winning the run back on Lancelot in a Game 5 set. Grand Finals between Base Mage and Tadakotori went down to a decisive Game 10, with Tadakotori resetting the bracket in a Game 5, and that reset also needing 5 full games. But in an insane reversal, Tadakotori won that Game 10, winning the first Battle of BC6 pre-local. The second tournament was UBC's Battle of BC6 pre-local, which drew in 102 entrants. Grand Finals saw Doramigi go up against Goryoka, who we were just talking about. Doramigi made Grands through winners by defeating Tadakotori 2-0, Ryuo 3-1, and lastly Goryoka 3-1. Goryoka, for his part, defeated Lancelot and Opsine, both in 2-0s, as well as Sam 3-1. After losing in winners finals to Doramigi, Goryoka defeated Chag in a close Game 5 set, to make it back up into Grands from loser's side. And even though Grands would go to a decisive Game 5, it was Doramigi who won in the end, eliminating Goryoka at second place and winning the second pre-local for Battle of BC6. The final tournament was the pre-local, the one advertised on the Start GG for the main tournament, and the one that most people were planning their schedules around. This tournament, the pre-game Battle of BC6 pre-local, drew in 342 entrants. But that includes Melee and Street Fighter people too, as this was the only one of the 3 pre-locals to offer non-ultimate brackets. The ult bracket got 173 entrants, and Grand Finals saw Riddles go up against Yoshidora. Riddles made Grands through winner's side by defeating Lancelot 2-1, Ron 2-0, Hurt in a Game 5 set, and lastly Yoshidora in one last Game 5 in winner's finals. Yoshidora actually defeated Toriguri 2-1 as his second set of the local, because TG was taking the place of someone else who wasn't there that day. But after that shockingly early set, Yoshidora defeated Goryoka 2-0, Doramigi 2-1, Gluteny 3-0, and after losing to Riddles, dropping into losers finals and defeating Hurt in a close Game 5 set, in order to make it back into Grands from losers side. But this run back wouldn't be as close as their first set, as Riddles defeated Yoshidora 3-1, eliminating Yoshidora at second place and with Riddles winning the largest and most important pre-local. Battle of BC6 will be starting today, and this was my last minute analysis of the bracket. If you want my overarching predictions, I think both Riddles and Doramigi are likely to go on huge runs, and my picks for the champion are either Spargo, Gluteny, Riddles, or Doramigi, with a dark horse pick going to Hurt as well. Personally, I hope Doramigi wins, but that's just my personal bias, because I really want Solo Min to finally win a major. If you want to take a look at any of these brackets or the seeding graphic, links are all in the description. But for now, that's going to be it for today's video. Before I go, shout out to my patrons as Laster, Frosco333, Logan S, Persipom, Wawa, Mr. Sinister, Happy Feet, Oishman, Mistybot, and my Tootsie patrons Iltis, Diamond Blaze, and Ben L. Additionally, shout out my YouTube members DJ Jr., Defective, Boston R, God Speed, Kirby Fan, Nexus, Loco Soko, and my Tootsie members Mark G, Wu-Tang Forever, and Stormtrooper. Lastly, extra special thanks to my Tier 3 supporters Fat Blizzard, who says dogs are better than cats, Avadoon, who says Mr. Rice is the go to Smash content, and Iltis, who says go watch the Rivals 2 videos. If you want to support me using any of these methods, links are in the description below. Also, I want to give one last sincere thanks to Let Me Fly for their continued support of my channel. Link to their Twitter is also in the description. Don't miss the streams and shorts I'm producing over the weekend, but until then, I've been Mr. Mice, and thank you all so very much for watching.